one more game to get to here, and it is a Sunday tip-off. Before we do, just want to remind everybody, if you're watching on YouTube and if you're enjoying the show, you think the information is good, do us a small favor, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and let us know in the comments what you're betting this weekend in college basketball as well. If you're listening on the audio side, 5-star review goes a long way to try and get some more people here, new audience, to try and share this information with them as well. So we thank you in advance for that. Sunday tip-off here at noon. Michigan State goes on the road to take on Maryland. Now, although this is a battle of two currently unranked teams, Eli, you do have Michigan cracking your top 25 at number 24. Our friends over at Haslametrics has Michigan State still at number 10, taking on a Maryland team that Haslametrics has ranked only at number 82. Clearly, you and I would agree that the Terps have been a disappointment for us this year after having high hopes coming into the season. Nevertheless, it's at least interesting to me in conference play that their defense has been fairly reliable. Their expected defensive efficiency has basically been met over the past handful of games here. And meanwhile, Michigan State is 0-3 in true road games this year. So tell us why you circled this game to talk about this week on Sunday.
Yeah, I have those Maryland futures, which I pretty much burned from the get-go. Long shot, but this is the team, you mentioned their defensive efficiency. I have them power rated when it comes to that end of the court as a top 5 defense right now. What stinks is if they didn't lose to Davidson and UAB in non-conference play and maybe are a little more competitive against Villanova, we may be talking, and I may be saying that Maryland is a decent long shot, kind of juxtaposed or in the same vein as Mississippi State and Texas A&M to make the Final Four. I don't know if they're going to make the tournament. Probably not. So that's the one downside with that take. But Maryland, maybe with a late season run, they needed to win against Northwestern. Terps, if they had won that game and then they beat Michigan State on Sunday, may have climbed back on the bubble. But either way, this is the team that Kevin Willard thought he was going to get. This is the team I thought Maryland was going to be. Granted, not as poor offensively. And Jamie Kaiser and Deshaun Harris-Smith, those two heralded freshmen, 4-star, or Harris-Smith actually was a 5-star. But Jamie Kaiser has been so inconsistent from 3. So has Harris-Smith. Not really the defensive player that Maryland thought they were getting, at least when it came to guarding elite Big Ten players and playing more like a sophomore, junior than a freshman, at least at that end of the court. But you look at three-point efficiency for Maryland overall, number 350 on that end or in that specific metric, right around 27.5%. Of course, we're recording this game before Michigan State takes on Minnesota. I would expect the Spartans to take advantage of a pretty fraudulent Gophers team, and they're 11-point favorites in that game, so keep that in mind too. You may see this projected spread rise a bit. Michigan State, though, allowing the 67th highest perimeter scoring rate in college basketball, and they've gotten a bit lucky when it comes to unguarded or guarded catch-and-shoot jumpers. Efficiency-wise, their opponents 27.8% in that category. Now, when you typically hear guarded shots, well, you would say, of course, opponents are going to miss, but you would still expect water to meet its level a bit in that percent where Maryland, now I know on the flip side, has not been very reliable from beyond the arc, but Jordan Geronimo, believe it or not, entered that Northwestern game 11% when it came to his three-point efficiency. Made 2 threes. Doesn't sound like a lot, but that's the kind of player Maryland thought that they were getting in the transfer portal from Indiana. A bit of an underrated and undervalued floor spacer when it came to his role in Indiana. Jameer Young has been ultra efficient and then some in conference play. 23 second-half points in that loss at Northwestern. Going to be a great home court advantage for Maryland in this game. If they want any shot at making the tournament, they need to win it. I have a hunch Maryland takes out Michigan State on Sunday. Also, you brought up that point that Michigan State has struggled mightily on the road. Could be an issue for them in a hostile environment, assuming Maryland gets the crowd that I expect.
I've mentioned the metric rim and 3 rate a couple of times in this show, and I want to ask you how you kind of put that stat into context, because I see Michigan State, and despite some of the really high metrics currently on them, or high rankings by the advanced metrics. They rank 333rd in Division I in rim and three rate. So to me, I see that, and it makes me think the ceiling for them offensively is capped in any given game. And it makes it a team that is more likely to get upset in any given game. Am I putting too much into that stat? Like, how do you frame that stat? Where do you use it in kind of the spectrum of your analysis of a team?
Absolutely. And just looking at Michigan State in particular, I say that with emphasis on the metric and Michigan State's lack of it offensively. You go back to North Carolina making that national championship run a couple of years ago. I think it's a fantastic comparison. So I'm going to give myself a pat on the back for it, because I didn't see a lot of people saying this entering the season, that the loss of Brady Manick on that UNC team that, keep in mind, was an 8 seed, made it all the way to the national title game, but got positive 3-point variance when it came to their defense because their opponents couldn't shoot from three that well and weren't able to take advantage of the drop coverage with Armando Bacot. Now, Michigan State's run, they didn't make it as far A last year. They were a 7 seed, made it to the Sweet 16, got upended by Kansas State in overtime. So you may say, okay, well, Michigan State wasn't as overvalued as UNC in the ensuing season as the Tar Heels were, because they opened up last year as the number 1 overall team after losing to Kansas in the national title game. Well, Michigan State entered the season as the 5th or top 5 team in the AP Top 25. I had them, keep in mind, as in the 10-11 range, so not as low as I have them right now, but still, the loss of Joey Hauser for this team was huge, especially in ball screen sets with Tyson Walker and AJ Hogarth, because right now Michigan State does not have a reliable 4-man. Malik Hall has been inconsistent and then some this year in the scoring department, but what Hauser meant to them as an efficient 3-point threat, especially in their ball screen sets, they lack, and a lot more, because like you said, they are not super reliant when it comes to the most efficient shots on the court, which is near the rim and from behind the arc. So Michigan State's offensive ceiling is definitely capped, even though a lot of prognosticators you've seen throughout the season, okay, this is a buy low opportunity on Michigan State in any given game. Maybe in the context of the short term, but I'm with you. I don't think so in the long term.
Yeah, gosh, if Maryland can just squeak into the tournament, isn't this a team that we potentially have to look at the draw as a maybe double-digit seed, making a run to the second weekend? You know, that to me is kind of how I view this team. You know, I'm with you. The hopes and dreams we had coming into the season with the futures we bet are probably out the window, but you know, there still might be a buy low opportunity here if they can improve their resume enough just to get into the field.
Or you make a conference tournament run. We've seen it done before. Georgetown a couple of years ago.
Especially in the Big Ten.
Right. We almost saw it with Penn State last year. I don't think they played on the Wednesday or anything crazy like that, the opening round of the conference tournament. But still, a bit of a surprise to your novice bettors, even though they played booty ball and did it at a very high level with Jalen Pickett and spaced the floor around him. That was such a fun team to watch. But I digress. Maryland could be a team that you look for and I look for when it comes to Big Ten tournament features.
If you dig into Maryland's team profile over at Haslametrics, this is now, you know, again, we are recording on Thursday, so Maryland does not have a game between now and the Michigan State game, so that's good. So this is now 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 of their last 7 games. They have outperformed their expected defensive efficiency. And the only game in that stretch where they have not was when they faced Purdue, one of the best teams in the country. So you can rely game to game on Maryland's defense. It's just a matter if they do enough offensively where it's, you know, going to matter. So I'm with you. I think Michigan's on upset alert in this.
And one last quick point about Maryland is Dante Scott has really found his range. Didn't have it in the Purdue game. He seems much more confident. Now, I'm not saying that's going to take Maryland to another level and you'll see them rise in the range of Auburn when it comes to their national title features. But having him confident offensively not only adds to Maryland's low 3-point efficiency, and it's risen, even though they rank number 350 in across Division I in that category, but also gives you a versatile player when it comes to his ability to exploit smaller fours with his back to the basket game.